Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I have picked up here the January My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts, and I'm not a monthly subscriber to these, but this one was really calling to me when I saw the release, so I went ahead and grabbed it, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to do more of these throughout the year for you. So right now I am giving you a quick look at what was included, and then we'll get started on the 6 cards that I created. So here for these first 2 cards, I'm keeping things really sweet and simple. I always love the packaging that their stamps and die sets come on, and I hate to throw these beautiful pictures away, so I'm not going to. I went ahead and grabbed this. It's almost a cardboard, or it's a very thick paper with a beautiful glossy photo print on it. And I'm trimming that down to 4 by 5 1/4. And luckily, the way that it works out, because of the way that they print on it, I'm able to use one panel from each side of the insert. So again, I'm trimming both of these down to 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm just sort of taking my time here and trying to visualize how much of what part of the image I want to include on the card front. So for card number 1, I'm going to use that image with the bicycle, and I have grabbed some cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. This is Mint Julep, and it matches the little bit of mint green that's up in the top corner of the picture. I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, "I love you," and I'm leaving a little bit of room there so I can see how I want to place that on the front of the card panel. But since I already had my inks and everything out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp on the inside. I'm using one of the red card bases that was included in the kit, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, "Happy Valentine's Day." I'm using my VersaMark or VersaFine Onyx Black ink. So here I'll go ahead and add some ATG to the back of that panel, and I'm going to place that there on top of my card base. And then I'm going to trim down this sentiment strip. And I decided that rather than cut a banner, I'm just going to place that all the way across my card front. But of course, you know me, I want to add some dimension, so I'm going to grab some foam tape first, and I'll place that all along the back of this. I'll go ahead and peel away the backing and then place that down on the front. And then I'll go ahead and trim off the excess, and that will complete card number 1. So here for card number 2, I'm going to go ahead and use that second panel, but I'm going to stamp out my sentiments first. I have grabbed this "Wishing You A" sentiment, and I'm going to stamp just the "Wishing You" portion of that. I'm using some MFT whipped cream cardstock, and I'm using a very old color box ink called Blue Iris, and this is one of my favorite colors, and it's making me very sad because my ink is really drying up. I've had to stamp this several times to get a really nice blue color that I'm looking for. So here I've gone ahead and I actually just trimmed off the A sentiment from the "Wishing You A," and I've lined that up here with the sentiment "Wonderful," and then once this is stamped out, I will add "Day" underneath that, again using that same this is a panel trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4 of that whipped cream cardstock, and again I'm using that Blue Iris ink. I'm going to go ahead and trim down that wishing you sentiment. And then here I'll go ahead and create a banner edge along one end of it. I'm going to go ahead here and I will add some Scor-Tape behind that. I'll place that down. And then to add in some dimension, I'm going to pop this whole panel up with some foam tape. I'll go ahead here and place this down on my card panel. This is one of the pink card bases that came in the kit. And then finally, I'll add some ATG to the back of that panel, and I'll go ahead and place that on the inside of the card base. And that will complete card number 2. Here for card number 3, I am stamping out a bunch of all these elements, and I stamped these a bunch of different times. I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink because I wasn't sure if I wanted to use Copic or watercolor on these. I did end up using a little bit of each. I did some Zig coloring as well as some Copic coloring, and I will show you a little bit of that throughout the video, but things ran really long and I didn't want to split this into 3 and 3, so I'm just going to show you just a few little highlights. Here I'm doing some of the watercoloring, and I for the most part have used just the straight color right out of the marker, and then I'll just fade that out using a little bit of water. And I'll have all of the colors that I used listed for you on my blog post. So here I'm starting to line everything up. I've got a card base here made from that MFT whipped cream cardstock, and I'm gonna line this up. I want to stamp my sentiment inside that store window. So I've lined up Happy Valentine's Day, and I'm gonna stamp that out. And because I'm running low on my Simon Says Stamp ink, where I can, I'm gonna use my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Here for the inside, I've lined up the sentiment, I love you, and I'll go ahead here and stamp that out as well. Now I fiddled around with all of these little elements quite a bit, so you'll see that I somewhat skip ahead just because I don't want to bore you and also for the sake of time. So once I have my scene all lined up the way that I would like it, I'm going to go ahead and attach everything down. And I'm using art glitter glue here, and I've sped this up really quickly for you as well. So I'll go ahead and place down all of my plants and flowers. And then once I've got all of the flowers down, I went ahead and added some of my sticky thumb dots to the back of this bicycle. And I will also go ahead then and add some to the balloons, not the string, just the balloons of that cutout there. And I wanted to make sure that the strings would stay stuck down tight, so I've added a little bit of art glitter glue just to the bottom of those there. For the inside, I wanted to give that a little bit of decoration too, so I'm going to add in this watering can as well as one of the crates and flowers, and I'm just layering those and again placing them down with my art glitter glue. And that will complete card number 3. Here for card number 4, I wanted to go with a little bit more of a sketch design. So I grabbed another piece of that whipped cream cardstock and I trimmed that to 4x5¼ and then I stamped out that storefront directly on that using my American Crafts Blush Pigment Ink. Again, I'm leaving that out. You guys have seen me do that a million times. As I said, this video is a bit longer because of all of the little elements that we're gluing together. So I'm just trying to save us some time here. And again, for the sake of time, I've gone ahead and laid out my scene. But here you can see me gluing all of these little elements down. I really like how this one turned out. It might be my favorite. I love this subtle storefront, which really allows all of the other little small elements to pop. So you'll see off to the side there that I have one of the pink card bases. I had planned to place this on top of that, but I just felt it was too much pink once I got everything added and was ready to go. So instead I swapped it out for one of the red card bases and I popped the whole panel up using some Scotch foam tape. Here for the inside for my sentiment, I'm going to go with wishing you a lovely day. And I've stamped that out again on a piece of that whipped cream cardstock, and I'm using that American Crafts Blush Pigment Ink. Here I'm adding ATG to the back of that, and then I'll go ahead and place that on the inside of my card base. And I left it off camera, but whenever I use this pigment ink, I always do take my heat gun to that just to make sure it's nice and dry before I place any of my panels down. And that completes card number 4. So here for card number 5, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of Copic coloring. I have pretty much done my usual Copics to create the wood of the storefront. I'm using all 3 colors. I'll have those listed for you on my blog post, and I just fade those darkest to lightest. I did use sort of a little bit of a different technique here at the awning. I wanted to share with you how I did this. I kept sort of a really light streak going across the center because that way it gave me the look of a little bit of a curve. I'm by no means an expert at Copic coloring, but I was pretty happy with how this turned out, so I wanted to let you know how I went about trying to get that shading so that I could really get a curved look to the panel. Once I finished with that, I did use a little bit of gray on the white sections of that Copic coloring. Once I finished with that, I went ahead and trimmed out the storefront, and I wanted to have sort of a peekaboo front to this card. So now I'm lining up the storefront with the die to cut out the window, and I'm placing that on top of my card base, and I'm then opening my card base. So I'm going to cut through my die cut storefront as well as the front of the card. And you'll see that a little better here once I take it off the machine. For this, I am using some cardstock from my stash. I really loved this pink color. I don't know where I got this cardstock from, but I wish I did because I would buy more of it. It's a beautiful sort of peachy pink color, and I can't find any other cardstock that matches this color exactly. So there you can see I've got my card base down, and I'm going to be stamping through that opening onto the inside of my card. And I went with a sentiment, I love you. Here I'm taking some Scor-Tape and I'm going to add that around the window. And I've grabbed a piece of acetate. I'm going to peel away the backing on that Scor-Tape, and then I'll place the acetate down and trim that to size. So I've also added some Scor-Tape all along the back of this. I want to make sure it's stuck down nice and tight. You wouldn't necessarily have had to add anything over this window, or if you were going to make a shaker card, this would be the same way to do it. You just use foam tape on the back instead of the Scor-Tape. But since I wanted to have some plants hanging, I really love the look of those hanging baskets from the storefront. I wanted to be able to place those down and not have to worry about anything sort of flying off or peeking through into the card base. So again, I'm taking my art glitter glue and I'm lining all of this up and placing down my flowers and pots. I kept this one a little bit more simple. I didn't add quite as many flowers, but I love that bike, so I'm adding that in again here. And then here, before I place that bike down, I will again add some pop dots to give that a little bit more dimension. I again finished off the inside with a little bit of florals. I'm adding in just one of the pots this time, and I'll add some roses on the top of that. Here I'm checking really quickly to make sure that's not peeking through the storefront. And that will complete card number 5. For my final card today, I wanted to keep things simple again. I really love that storefront and all the beautiful flowers to go in it, but that is such a time-consuming card to create. So I wanted to show you another option of a quicker card to make, still using the stamp set. I've grabbed a card base here made from MFT's whipped cream, and I grabbed an extra strip of this pink chevron pattern paper. This was left over from my Spellbinders card kit for this month. I also trimmed out a piece of, this is called Enchanted Evening. It's by Paper Tray Ink, and I've trimmed that out to roughly like 3 by 4 inches. I'm going to place that down here on top. I decided to add the sentiment below there, so I went with Be Mine, and I'm stamping that out using my intense black ink, and that is directly on the cardstock or card base. And then again, I decided to go ahead and stamp the inside while I had everything out, so I went with the sentiment Happy Valentine's Day. Here to finish off the front, I am going to go ahead and pop up that bike using some pop dots as well as the balloons, and I'll do that the same as I did before, just adding the pop dots behind the balloons, and then I'll add a little bit of art glitter glue behind the string to keep them in place. And then finally here, I'll go ahead and place down the bicycle. For the inside here, I've cut out 3 little pink hearts, and I did use the little heart die that came with the kit. And I'll go ahead and place these in a row here using my art glitter glue. And that will complete card number 6. Here are a few close-ups of the finished cards. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I used. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.